Welcome, everybody, to Dishwasher Diaries, where we discuss all subjects, integral, tangential, and most of the time, utterly irrelevant to the controversial topic of loading the dishwasher. After discussing this topic for over a year, and for about half of that year, every single day, we decided to make it a podcast, bring in lots of interesting people to talk about how they load their dishwasher, and of course, all the other things they do in their life. We're going to be chatting with some of the folks from our Dishwasher Diaries gang today, as well as having a special guest, Jeffrey Bleich. Jeff is the chief legal officer of autonomous car company Cruise. So we're going to be talking about autonomous cars. You can already jump in one of these and get a lift in San Francisco, wherever you're going. But Jeff has done a variety of other very interesting things in his life. Clerked on the Supreme Court, head of the California Bar, U.S. ambassador to Australia. So we'll be talking to Jeff about all sorts of things in about 10 minutes. But before all of that, our theme song.
Do you wash by hand or by machine? Do you rinse your dish or do you leave it in the sink soaking? Dishwasher queries from people all over the world. Bring your questions then. Come and meet my friends, Dishwasher Diaries. Have you ever cleaned out your food trap?
Chris, have you ever cleaned out your food trap?
Have you ever
of course.
all the brands of the product you're using? We will investigate the best way to dry your plates. Bring your questions there. Come and meet my friends, Dishwasher Diaries. Dishwasher Diaries.
Welcome.
So let me follow that up, Steve. Not only
Yes,
have I cleaned out my dishwasher, since this whole crazy saga of talking about dishwashers has started, I have cleaned out the food traps of friends and relatives.
Seriously.
Seriously, when I started talking to them about dishwashers and they thought I was a crazy man, which I am, I was like, here, let's open it right now. We took out the plates, we pulled out the drawer, and I was like, right there, see that? That's your food trap. And I unscrewed it.
Just last night after dinner, the dishwasher got rearranged on me. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I have a podcast called Dishwasher Diaries. Nobody is going to rearrange a dishwasher on me.
Was this in your home?
Yes. I was indignant.
Oh my God.
Isn't that, I mean, that was appalling.
What? I am shocked.
I was shocked as well. So I mentioned that we've been talking about this on Clubhouse for over a year before we started the podcast. And in that time, we have gathered a group of friends that we like to call the Dishwasher Diaries gang. It's quite a group. A variety of styles, needless to say, on loading the dishwasher, but also all sorts of fun and interesting things have happened. And, I just wanted to chat with some of those folks today. Let's start, old school. We're going to have a chat first about just loading the dishwasher with one of our friends. Judy Ann, there is a particular, good to see you. There is a particular little dishwasher loading method that we have named after you in honor of you and your dad. So I just want to start there. Silverware, the knives, the forks, the spoons, handles up, handles down. How do you put those into your basket?
Well, hi, Steve. Hi, everyone.
Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Hi,
Good to
Judy
see
Ann.
you, Felicity, everybody. Well, I came in to Dishwasher Diaries with my dad's tradition, as you mentioned, Steve, of always putting the spoons handles down so that the water can drain from the bowl of the spoon easily and won't collect, and to put anything sharp, so the knives and the forks, head side down, handles up, so that they don't stick you when you go to unload. Definitely randomly throughout the basket, because it is a basket. But really, since Diaries, I've tried to kind of mix it up a little bit and try some new things.
The same exact thing happened to me. I am now, and this is new for me, I am now no rules. Some forks are tines down, some are tines up. I've decided that in order to just sort of give the most room for all of the utensils, that's the best way. Like this idea, some people think eating side up on everything because it's going to get hit by more water, right? It's not sort of down there in the basket, it's exposed, and it's going to get more water. But I have now decided that mixing it up creates the sort of most space. There's the least chance of nesting so that two are kind of, laying on each other. So I have also refined my silverware practice since talking with everyone on Dishwasher Diaries. Now, what is there any other sort of quirky thing you're doing when you load your dishwasher? Is there? We've talked about the silverware a lot, so much so that we've named that method after you. Spoons up, everything else down. That is the Judy Ann method. What else?
Yes. Well, I also, there was one nuance to that I didn't mention, almost probably because I took it for granted, is I've heard since starting this year, you started this room, that some people put like all the forks in one basket and all the spoons in one basket so that they can unload them.
Oh, easy unloading. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But I specifically always put, if I have 5 spoons that are dirty, I put 1 in each basket so that you make sure that they don't nest. And it's just varied. So each basket is going to have a variance of utensils.
I spread them out as well. Now, I got to go to Chris on this. Chris, we're going to have I've only heard this secondhand. This is hearsay. But Chris, you have a friend who has a very interesting approach to this issue that Judy Ann has just been talking about.
Yes, dishwashing came up recently with a friend of mine, and she told me that she does each basket is its own place setting. So each basket for silverware has got a fork, a spoon, a knife, a dessert spoon. It's each one gets its own.
Wow.
Yeah. I do want her to come on and try to talk about it and explain it, but wow.
She still needs to work it out with her therapist before she comes on to talk about it.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I've got to say, when you first told me this story, I actually misunderstood. And I thought you were actually telling me that in the drawer where she, that holds the silverware, she had a compartment for a place setting each, so she could like grab a place setting rather than like grabbing one of each piece. She could just grab a place setting out of a compartment. And I thought, wow. But then, of course, I realized I completely misunderstood what you were saying.
That may be the case. I can't confirm or deny that. It might be, but I don't know. I know within the dishwasher itself, each little basket for silverware gets its own setting.
Now, and I suppose for the whole sort of anti-nesting thing, that kind of works because I'm sort of kind of doing the same thing without like being so careful about it. Now, one other person I want to chat with before our guest shows up, Felicity. Back when we were doing this, every day and not recording it, you became our unofficial and now official woman in the field.
Yes.
You visited an appliance store for us, and we had an amazing live interview with a dishwasher salesperson.
We did. It was so fun. And I just, I just got this idea to do it. So I thought it would be fun because I'd wanted to do it for a long time, like, interview people about their dishwashers. But I went and I worked really hard to like make sure that they didn't think I was being super weird or disruptive. So it's like I went in and it was super polite. And then they got some really good dishwasher guide. We're like wearing our COVID masks and everything. We took some Instagram pictures. It was funny. He thought it was weird and funny, and it was good. And I think he ended up selling a dishwasher maybe to somebody. There was contact information shared. I don't know.
There was like wasn't there a couple that he was trying to sell a dishwasher to when you came in? Am I remembering that right?
Well, there was a couple that we talked to for a minute, or that I talked to like right afterwards. But like, no, I mean, there was nobody really in the store, which was why they let him talk to me.
So what do you have in store for us? You and I have not talked about this at all, but we're going to send you back out into the world.
Right.
So where are you going? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I am trying to currently track down Dishwasher Pete to see if he still
oh my God,
washes dishes in his defunct Dishwasher magazine. That was like 15 issues long. And then, so I'm trying to track down Dishwasher Pete, number one. Number two, I'd like to go to a cafeteria or one of those places that's got those really big, weird dishwashers, where you just put the tray on and it's like a sanitizer. Yeah. And then, in Kentucky, they have the largest, GE's got the largest dishwasher manufacturing factory, So, and I've got friends and family out there, and I figure like, why not? I haven't done anything. And then also just, good old lady on the street things, Black Friday. Is anybody getting appliances for Black Friday? I don't know. Who knows where it'll take us? But yeah, I'm, I figure I can, my tracking down Dishwasher Pete could just be like a mini series within a series,
I love it. I also heard just on the news yesterday, and I'm really bothered that I don't remember the state. For some reason, Louisiana is sticking in my mind, but I could really be wrong about that. Bosch just announced that they are opening a huge plant somewhere in the United States. Now, they already make most of their U.S. dishwashers, if I recall correctly, in a plant in North Carolina, but they're opening another one somewhere. So I think at some point we also have to send you to a dishwasher factory.
I think so too, because, actually, I did actually read some of the stats, dishwashers were one of the, areas of industry that actually saw a boost during the pandemic. Actually, more people bought dishwashers, and they're like due for, oh God, I had my percentages written down for growth, but explosive growth by 2027 is what I read. And I was like, all right, dishwashers, let's do this.
So that does bring up the question, nothing to do with our field reporter. We do have our friends who either just don't have a dishwasher,
right,
even though they would like to have one. But we also have what I call our dishwasher refuseniks, who despise dishwashers and would never have a dishwasher and object to dishwashers. They are hand washers.
Right. But, people can be dishwashers too, as I love to say,
Exactly. We this is a safe space.
Yeah.
Those who load their mechanical dishwasher, but also those who are the dishwasher or have another human dishwasher.
I have hot news off the presses that everybody might not know. Well, everybody might know but me. But
Ngozai, first I want to say hello, Ngozai.
Hello.
Joining us from the Boston area.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing well. And so I was looking online to see where's this new plant opening, but I discovered something else. It's called the Bosch Auto Air 500 series dishwasher that
Bosch?
opens the door automatically to dry your dishes. Have you heard of this?
Oh, so instead, is this in place of heat drying? It just opens so that they can air dry.
Energy efficient. I love it.
I do like it. I do like
It
it.
has a cool crystal dry feature, for example.
A cool crystal dry feature. Nice.
Miele doesn't even have that.
Well, we can't. Sorry, one of the many things we learned in our year discussing this on the daily is how to pronounce that word. Our friend Jochen taught us it is Miele. Miele.
Like a nice woman's name. Gotcha. Miele.
So while we're on the subject of drying, one of the other very interesting things we learned, right, is why your Tupperware or your plastic containers and plastic bowls, doesn't have to be Tupperware, doesn't get dry, right? This is frustrating to a lot of people. They open the dishwasher and there's wet stuff in there. So this has to do with the speed with which that stuff cools. It cools off much faster than a plate or a knife or a fork. And it is that rapid cooling of the plastic that results in the condensation on your Tupperware, on your plastic bowls. And this is why they often need to be towel dried, even though you have the drying function on your dishwasher. We had a plastics guy explain this whole thing to us.
I remember this, and I thought it was very useful knowledge. And I did finally remember 8.2% year-over-year growth for dishwashers, you guys.
Wow, that's big. Should I be panicking
Steve,
that our guest is...
no. Jeff has just arrived, as a matter of fact.
All right.
As you were opening your mouth.
Jeff, just as I was about to curse your name because you're late, you showed up. So Jeff and I have known each other for a minute. Let me introduce him before I bring him up. He has no idea, by the way, what he's gotten himself into. How are you, brother? Oh my gosh, we can see the top of your head. There you are. Wait a second. Are you home?
I am.
Oh, this is awesome. Because before we talk about all the amazing things you've done and are doing, we're going to talk about how you load your dishwasher. But first, let me just quickly introduce you. I did this before you got here, but it's rude not to do it after you've arrived. Jeff, one of the things we have in common is that we both clerked for the wonderful Abner Mikva on the Court of Appeals. Jeff went on to clerk for the Chief Justice, Justice Rehnquist. Jeff was president of the State Bar of California. He is a leading lawyer, both in private practice and in pro bono, working with immigrants, with at-risk youth, victims of gun violence. He was special counsel to President Obama, who then appointed him to become the U.S. ambassador to Australia. He ran for lieutenant governor. He is now, and we're going to talk autonomous cars in a minute, he is now the chief legal officer at Cruise. You can literally, I saw the video, Jeff, you can jump in a car, take you wherever you're going, and there's nobody in the car except you. We'll get to all of that. But first, are you the person in your household who at least some of the time, and maybe even all the time, loads the dishwasher?
I am the person in my household who is forbidden from loading the dishwasher.
No.
Every time I do it, somehow I'm doing it wrong. And I'm always trying to be helpful, and apparently I'm not. I don't know how to maximize space in a dishwasher.
Oh my God, I love this. Jeff, part of what started this, I mean, again, I said this before you got here. You and I, like early in our careers, we kind of have this similar thing. But then you go on to become the ambassador to Australia, and I wind up on social media talking about how to load a dishwasher for 189 days in a row. So I need to seriously reevaluate my life choices. But this all started because I was listening to a guy. I had just gotten a COVID shot. I was in the recovery area. And I'm listening on Clubhouse to this guy talk about he's on his honeymoon, he's an engineer, and he's talking with his new wife about loading the dishwasher. And this guy has very particular ideas about how to load a dishwasher. And same thing. Now, it sounds like in your family, someone else, perhaps Becky, has some ideas about how a dishwasher should be loaded.
No, she is very skilled at it, and she just hates to see amateurs, mucking with her genius. I mean, she's like, she can fit pretty much, our entire household into the dishwasher if necessary. Yeah, it's
Now, is this a ploy, Jeff? Did you purposely load the dishwasher shittily so that you would get off the hook? Was this a clever ploy on your part?
Yeah, no, I remember my wife her sisters, were particularly bad at cleaning bathrooms, just so that they could avoid that responsibility. No, I mean, I'm honestly trying. I really am, and it's one of those points of failure in my life. I was a little ashamed that you brought it up, frankly, Steve.
It's Dishwasher Diaries, Jeff. We start every conversation by asking people about loading the dishwasher. Do you clear? Are you allowed to clear into the garbage can and put it on the counter so that someone more skilled can load, or are you completely out of this process entirely?
No, I'm fine with clearing, and so I have, and I'm very aggressive about clearing as a result, because it's the only thing I'm allowed to do after a meal. So I'm picking up people's plates while they're still eating, because I just want to make sure no one clears before I do. That's so I'm compensating.
You are an accomplished person. You want to get shit done. So let's start with autonomous cars. I mean, tell us about Cruise. I have a bunch of questions. Yes. But first, why don't you just set it up by telling us what Cruise is, what you're doing. Let us have it.
Well, it's pretty much a standard move. You're a United States ambassador. The next thing you want to do is, run a taxi company. So there is a bit of a story here, which is I had been focused a lot on AI and autonomous vehicles, and the potential, benefits of AI to human beings generally, and to democracies in particular, but also the risks that they presented. And I'd used autonomous vehicles as an example, which was that they can either do wonderful things for society. They can, potentially save tens of thousands of lives in the United States on the road from fatalities, and then millions from injuries. That you can take billions of tons of carbon out of the atmosphere if you use an EV fleet. That you democratize mobility, you allow people who are elderly, people with sight impairment, people who live in communities that are typically ignored by traditional ride hail because they're either perceived as dangerous or they're not going to get big tips, that kind of thing. And everyone gets mobility. Everyone gets their own car, and you open up the streets. I mean, people get their lives back in vehicles. They're not grinding through traffic. I mean, there are so many benefits. But on the other hand, if you do it wrong, then you've got these data hoovers on every navigable space on Earth sucking up information about people that could be used by authoritarian governments for social control or some kind of surveillance capitalism. So, there's a choice to be made. And I got a call from Cruise saying, we're worried about the same thing you're worried about. We want to do this right. We want to set standards that are high standards that aren't about, invading people's privacy, but really about, saving lives on the road and taking carbon out of the atmosphere. And they were willing to call my bluff and say, look, if that's the world you want to create, we'll let you take on that role with us. So I joined about 2 years ago, and they've been true to their word. I mean, this is, it's a safety culture, it's a privacy culture, and it's a culture that's focused on taking full advantage of something that I think could be mind-blowingly wonderful for how we get around. Which is one of the things that every one of us has to do almost every day.
I love it. I have so many questions, and I where I'm going to start, I think, because I bet when you meet just the average person on the street, and we were chatting even a little before you got here, right? Everyone starts with just this sort of feeling of unsafe. Oh my God, I'm freaked out. There's no driver in the car. And of course, I've read enough to know there's a million ways in which this is a lot safer than a human driver. But tell us, just like, give us the lowdown on like what's going on. I've seen your cars. And by the way, I'm on my second Chevy Bolt, and I know that that's the platform that you guys have built on. I love it. So just tell us a little bit about how these cars drive with no human being in them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the experience you're describing is the experience that people have, which is they summon the vehicle the way you would with a Lyft or Uber or any other app, and the vehicle rolls up to you just as it would and pulls up alongside you. The only thing that's weird about it is it's a ghost car. I mean, there's no one inside it when it pulls up to you, and then you get a prompt on your phone. You hit it, and it unlocks the door, and you get in and buckle up, and you're off. And at first, that first movement, you think, this is crazy. I'm in a car with no one behind the wheel, and then after 2 or 3 minutes, it's such a comfortable ride, you kind of forget that there's no one there. You start checking your phone, having normal conversations. I mean, by the end of it, it's kind of it's our goal is for it to be boring. Yeah. It's supposed to be, you can read, you can think about something else, you can call friends, you can whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about the road. The way it works is we use a combination of LiDAR, radar, cameras, sensors all around the vehicle, and they have, they're unlike a human being. They're just perceiving 360 degrees all the time, and making thousands of predictions about everything that's on the road and whether or not and different ways in which it might move. So it's the great thing about this technology is that the more you use it, the better it gets at these things. And so we're now safe enough that we're permitted to take people on rides and have them pay fares in San Francisco, and so we're doing very well. But what gets me most excited about it is that the more people ride and the more of these there are on the road, the better and better they get. And so the goal is one day to have zero emissions and zero deaths.
Yeah. If I understand it right, this is something that will be happening, but isn't necessarily happening yet. When these cars become more common, the cars will also talk to each other, right? So it's not just that there's all of these sensors and cameras and LiDAR, but also all the autonomous cars, not just cruises, but presumably all of the autonomous cars can also talk to each other while they're all on the road together. Do I understand that right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, they'll be able to make predictions about each other's behavior because the behavior will be so predictable, and so they will recognize each other's vehicle, and they will have perfect prediction about them. The weird thing is we are now the X factor. The human beings are the ones who are responsible for a lot of the collisions because we're so unpredictable still. We get distracted, we get drunk, we, or changing stations, whatever it is, on Spotify, you name it.
So you've been focusing so far on sort of the ride share aspect, but I mean, I assume part of the business model is to use these autonomous cars for things other than what you call taxi service. I mean, delivering goods, both trucking style and, last mile. Is that all part of where this is going?
Yeah, no, that's where the industry is going. And we're doing some of that. So Cruise is operating a ride-hail service here in San Francisco, and we're also operating a delivery service with Walmart in the Phoenix area. And we're, looking at where we're going to expand and how we're going to expand. But other companies are doing long-haul trucking, and others are trying to work towards personally owned AVs. We think that this is probably the best space to be in for a whole variety of reasons. One is that it gives you much greater control over the operation of your vehicle. So if there were an issue, we can we can address the entire fleet simultaneously. You don't have to worry about people bringing in their vehicle for a recall. You don't have to worry about people, trying to use it in ways that, in conditions that you don't think are safe yet. So if there's particular weather conditions, we can make sure that vehicles don't operate in that. Whereas personally owned vehicles, people might try and do more with the vehicle than it's prepared to do at that time. So that's one of the advantages of operating a fleet. And we really are focused first on safety. And if we get that right and we build the trust that we're hoping we will, then it just naturally expands. I think it's more of at this point, I think it's more of a trust race than a technology race. So we're going with a mode of operation that we think allows us to maintain the greatest control and therefore build the greatest amount of trust.
Got it. This is a question that just comes from my personal experience. I don't know how many people have seen the electric cars for one passenger, Electromechanica and others. I have a friend I play football with every week, soccer with every week, who works for them, and he brings his little red single person car. Is that part of the plan? Because it seems to me that like a lot of people who hail a ride are alone. Those cars are very small. They can even lane split. This is getting into the hairs a little, but are you guys looking at single passenger vehicles as part of the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were to tell you what we're secretly thinking about, I would be a really bad chief legal officer.
That is true.
So I'm always telling people to, not tell trade secrets. So I won't tell trade secrets. On the other hand, as I said, the whole idea is this is where we begin, and where we end, I think, will depend a lot on both, consumer taste and, how the market evolves and how the technology evolves. But it's really been fascinating. I mean, it's just, the things that we've been able to accomplish and the issues we've been able to solve have just been mind blowing for me. And, particularly as the old guy in the company, it's given me some hope about the future at a time when there are a lot of other things that have given me a little bit of fear about the future.
And we're about to turn to those, but before we do, those things that are giving us both a lot of fear about the future. Last question. I'm sure you get asked this one all the time. So what's the time frame? Like, when will what you guys are doing be available, all over the United States or maybe globally? Like, what's the timeline and geographic footprint of what you guys are up to?
So a couple things. One is, I think the future's already here. It's just not equally distributed yet. So we are operating a ride-hail service in San Francisco. People have the app that you're describing, and they get in the vehicle and they use it to get home from work, to get home from bars. Just they're using it today and paying fares, and it's happening. And same thing with delivery. So we are. The timeline in terms of its expansion, I think progress moves at the speed of trust. And so as we establish the safety of these vehicles and also the value proposition, I mean, when you take out the cost of gasoline, you take out the cost of a driver, you take out the liability of increased collisions that we have with human drivers, it burns down the cost pretty dramatically. And so it's a better way of getting around. And I think as soon as, that is better known internally and we get some of the, a larger industry right now, we're kind of in the lead, and we're hoping, as others, also get to this milestone, there'll be just greater acceptance, and then the sky's the limit. We've already announced our deal in Dubai, where we're going to be their exclusive robotaxi provider. So I would say you should expect to see vehicles coming to your town in the next year or two.
Great. I already have the app loaded up for my next trip to the Bay Area, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay. So I want to turn now to the court, right? You and I obviously both clerked. You clerked for the chief, I want to say a couple of years before I clerked. What was your term?
I was OT 90. So
OT 90, and I was OT 93. OT for the civilians is October term. And that's when the Supreme Court first hears cases on the first Monday in October. So I have a split personality in the podcast world, Jeff. I talk about loading dishwashers and I talk about the Supreme Court on a different podcast. And
I speak of little else besides the dishwasher in our home. So you had me at hello.
it's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm not prone to, dramatic overstatement, but what went down at the end of this term at the Supreme Court on so many issues so quickly, the Second Amendment, Roe versus Wade, EPA and administrative law, and others, and the way in which those cases were decided had me throwing around the word lawless. And that is not a word I even feel comfortable saying out loud, but I'm pretty alarmed. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts on any particular cases you want to talk about, but also just the overall sense I have that we have what I consider the most activist term in the history of the Supreme Court in terms of just 180-degree switches, 150-degree switches, just rapid, scary changes in many different areas of the law. What are your general thoughts on it?
Well, sort of two things. One is, we really do have to take a big step back and look at how the court came to have the composition that it has today, because there had been a tradition going back to the founding, the establishment of the court after 1789, in which if there were a vacancy on the court at the time of a during the year leading up to an election, you would always allow the president to select a justice, unless it was in the last few weeks. Within a month or so. At that point, you think, well, the public is about to choose the president, and we should have whoever the public now chooses select the next justice. And so, when Antonin Scalia passed away and opened up a seat on the court in February of an election year, 9 months before the election, just tradition and everything required that President Obama be able to fill that seat, and he would have filled it with Merrick Garland. And it was stunning.
Just to break in quickly, who also clerked for the same Court of Appeals judge that you and I did for, Abner Mikva. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so it was a stunning reach and power grab by the Republican-controlled Congress to prevent President Obama from being able to fill that seat. But after they did that, they said, well, look, if there is an opening in the in the year before the next election, we would do the same thing, which is we would never interfere with we would never interfere with the prerogatives of the then sitting president, right? Unless it's in the last few weeks, in which case, no, there's no way. So they violated it on the front end. And then in 2016, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away within the last few weeks, then they violated precisely what they said they would never do.
Yep. And
they rammed someone through, notwithstanding the fact that not only was it in the year before the election, but it was in the final weeks before the election. So in both cases, just absolutely wrong. But for those two changes, it would have been a 5-4 decision with more Democratic appointed members of the court than Republican appointed members, as opposed to 6-3. And half the women or half the people in the United States would not have lost control over their reproductive choices after 50 years of established precedent and having built their lives around it. around those expectations in terms of child rearing and family planning. So I think the part of why you may have had that sense of lawlessness is just this was a power grab. It was the court by any historical measure should have a very different composition than it has today. It would be 5-4 votes the other way on those cases.
Yep.
I think the other thing that was striking about that decision and the New York decision was that on there were just some leaps of logic that are very difficult to reconcile. So in the Dobbs case, which is the one that overruled Roe versus Wade, there was a concurrence by Clarence Thomas where he essentially said all substantive due process, the core that underlied Roe versus Wade, is a fiction, and it shouldn't be part of constitutional interpretation. And that puts into question whether or not married couples can have can purchase contraception, or whether that can be banned by the state. That was the Griswold case, and there was the same-sex marriage cases that prohibited anti-sodomy laws that made it illegal to have same-sex orientation, whatever it is. Those were all now potentially at risk because Clarence Thomas didn't believe in substantive due process. What he left out of that decision was that his marriage to Ginny Thomas is based upon substantive due process. Virginia used to ban mixed race marriages, and it's only because of substantive due process and that interpretation that he was able to have that marriage. So just the kind of squinting at the law, and I'll read it this way when it suits me, and I'll read it the other way when it doesn't suit me. In terms of my my own personal preferences, was stunning. And you see the same thing in the gun issue, in which in connection with these privacy rights, the states are supposed to have paramount authority to control how the law is administered. But when it comes to guns, the states have no rights to prevent people from carrying weapons here in California into any store they want, and to walk down the street with guns all the time. That's basically the outcome of that decision. So the logic of these cases is mystifying, because it's not based upon a principle that applies across the board. It seems to be based upon policy preferences,
Right.
of the individual justices.
It is so ironic. I mean, the criticism of the Warren Court and this idea of results orientation, and I think we've seen just a blatantly results oriented court this year. You mentioned history. The other question I want to ask you about the court, sort of generally, is this notion, which is now, of course, very much in the ascendance, that the touchstone for interpreting the Second Amendment is the so-called original understanding of it at the time it was ratified. The touchstone of understanding the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause or Equal Protection Clause is the so-called original understanding. I think we agree that that's nuts for a variety of reasons, but I wanted to hear straight from your mouth your thoughts on this obsession with what I think is ultimately unknowable in most cases, this idea that we're going to just focus on original understanding, and that's how we interpret the Constitution.
Yeah, well, so a few things. Yes, it is not a compelling philosophy for a whole bunch of reasons. One is that the founders themselves, the originalists, the one thing we know about their consistent thinking is the reason they wrote a constitution was because they wanted an evolving document. They created a way of amending it. They planned on amending it from the day they wrote it, and then they had the Bill of Rights as proof of that intent and the the realization of that intent. They believe this should be an evolving document, and they use terms that we're supposed to evolve with changing community standards. So they don't say very specific things the way you would in a law. They say, there should be due process of law. There should be equal protection of the law. They say there should be, no cruel and unusual punishment, no unreasonable search and seizure. They couldn't anticipate every technology. They couldn't anticipate how society would evolve, but they were sophisticated enough to know that there would be new technologies and society would evolve, and that there had to be just some basic principles that would move with those. So to try and lock in, what is cruel and unusual today versus at the time of the Constitution's, ratification. At the time the Constitution was ratified, one of the accepted punishments was ear cropping. Like you stole something and people would lop off your ears, right?
This is amazing.
So this is going to be what we're locked into. We can now crop people's ears.
I want to tell you a quick story about this. It's amazing that you used this example. I once had a face-to-face conversation with Robert Bork.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him the question, so just to make sure I'm clear, you believe that ear cropping is constitutional? And I had this conversation with him about, maybe 15 years ago. And without any hesitation, without any discomfort, he said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's bad policy, but yeah, clearly at the time the Eighth Amendment was ratified, ear cropping was commonplace. Therefore, it is clearly, incontrovertibly constitutional. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, no, and the problem is the argument for originalism is, well, we should not be imposing our views on, on this document. Well, first, besides the fact that the founders wanted us to look at society today and understand the Constitution as a set of principles and values. Well, today what you're doing cruel and unusual, even if it wasn't considered cruel and unusual 200 years ago? Besides the fact that that's part of it, this notion that somehow we're being pure because we're limiting ourselves to what they actually intended, we're not. This is a very subjective judgment. So the court in the New York gun case was trying to say, well, are these weapons similar to a weapon that would have been available to someone who was fighting in the Revolutionary War, that they could bring home with them? And is a musket really like an AK-47 or an AR-15? Is a line as long as a rock is heavy? These are very, very different things, and it's purely subjective. And so the notion that you dress it up as, I'm being faithful to the original words and meaning of the Constitution is just, it's a fantasy. It's just not true. And I don't understand how very intelligent people, the justices are not, are not unintelligent, are not unsophisticated. The fact that they are espousing this theory, which just doesn't hold up to scrutiny, is beyond me.
I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. This is a conversation I've been having for a while now, trying to educate people about just how silly and empty this theory of constitutional interpretation is. One more serious subject before I let you go. We got to talk about, I'm going to say the words January 6th, but as soon as I say it, I want to emphasize that I'm not just talking about, I want to talk about January 6th, but I want to talk about the effort, both past and ongoing, to steal the presidency, to disenfranchise people, to short circuit the methods by which we elect our leaders. Open-ended question. I want to get your thoughts on both what happened on the 6th and the larger context in which it happened and continues to be happening.
Yeah. No, I think so. One of the things that was stunning, and maybe because it's personal to me, having been special counsel to the president, was the reaction of people at a time when they were watching TV. They had seen that the president had summoned a crowd that he knew was armed, that he had encouraged them to go to the Capitol to stop the counting of electoral ballots. He had, issued a tweet that said Mike Pence had failed to do his duty and was a coward. And people started chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," and were starting to storm the Capitol in order to kill Mike Pence, prevent the counting of electoral ballots, and allow the president to seize power based upon something that he knew to be a lie, which is, that he had somehow won the election. He knew that wasn't true. And the people around him broke into three camps talking about different options. They were talking about, well, maybe we should make him stop, or maybe we should let it happen and see what happens. Or maybe we should egg them on and blame Antifa, right? It's like, there are certain things that there aren't, you don't offer options. In a situation like that where the president is about to violate the Constitution and turn our democracy into an autocracy by killing, the vice president, it's pretty straightforward. You uphold your sworn duty to defend the Constitution and uphold the law, and you stop the president. And the fact that there was even a debate, that there was sort of an agreement to disagree, is just stunning and horrifying to me. And I think we need to take a big step back and appreciate that democracy is not God-given. It is not, it'll happen no matter what. I think we have been far too neglectful of our democracy for decades now. People don't vote. People don't get informed about issues. We've stopped holding people accountable. They can lie, and we just say, well, yeah, that's what politicians do. We are not being good citizens. Our responsibility as citizens is to vote, is to engage, is to know the facts and to pick people who we trust and to hold them accountable if they violate our trust. And we're not doing that. And as a result, our democracy really is in peril. And I have, me, I'm an optimist. But unless we start taking this much more seriously than we have, we're going to breach faith with every other generation that before us has always done the right thing. They have always, at critical moments, stepped up and acted like citizens and made sure that we preserve a democracy for the next generation. This is the first generation since the Civil War that has been prepared to watch democracy go down.
On that sober note, you have time to take a few questions from our audience?
Sure.
Awesome. Chris, why don't we start with you, and then we'll take a few other questions. Chris is my trusty producer. Have at it, Chris.
Hi, Jeff. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Chris, and sorry to be late.
Oh, it's fine. Absolutely fine. I'm glad to have you here. I have a very serious question for you.
Yes.
You said that you clear your plates. I'm going to go back to dishwashers.
This is Dishwasher Diaries.
Yes, you clear the plates. Do you get them ready to go into the dishwasher as well? So, are you scraping them? Are you rinsing them? What are you doing?
Again, it kind of depends on what kind of plates we have. Because in addition to not being trusted with the dishwasher, I'm not trusted with the hand wash. So things that can go in the dishwasher, I'm allowed to scrape and clean and everything else. But anything that might require, more delicate care, apparently, I am viewed as too ham-handed in my household. So I know my limitations now.
Gotcha. And I have another question for you. So I know that you were ambassador in Australia, correct? Um, we, in our far-flung research over the last year, have learned that there have been several dishwasher-related deaths each year.
This is
And we
weird, Jeff.
Dangerous country.
and we found several stories of people in Australia tripping and falling into their open drawers in the dishwasher and impaling themselves on silverware. What's going on in Australia that is making that the hotbed for this?
Well, the the you have just given me a great talking point in Australia, because in Australia, almost everything will kill you. They have 8 of the 10 deadliest snakes. They've got some of the deadliest spiders. They've got, box jellyfish where you die from the pain. They've got crocodiles and great whites, and there are trees that are poisonous, like a branch scrapes you and you could die from that. I mean, it is. But when you talk to Australians about how dangerous their country is, they're like, "Oh, you're more likely to die from a coconut dropping off a palm tree." Yeah, But now I can say, actually, you're more likely to die from tripping over your own dishwasher and being impaled on a serving fork. So there you go.
Yes, handles up, handles up. It should always be handles up.
Handles. Yeah, always handles up.
Yeah, except for the spoons.
Yeah, we have no idea why. Every story we could find about someone tripping into their dishwasher and dying was in Australia.
This is, I just want to say, you guys, this has become kind of a fetish. You're like searching the internet for worldwide dishwasher incidents. Is this how you're operating?
You don't know the half of it, Jeff.
It was a very long quarantine, Jeff.
During COVID, Jeff, again, I need to seriously reevaluate my life choices. For 189, I think it was, days in a row, I would come on to Clubhouse for at least a little bit, and sometimes a lot longer than a little bit, and interview people, just average folks, about how they loaded their dishwasher. We learned about dishwasher deaths. We learned about putting your blue jeans in the freezer. We learned about, is it safe to put plastics in the microwave, and why or why not? Yeah, it's bizarre. Do we have one other question from the audience, Chris? Do we have anyone else who wants to ask a question?
Oh, come on. I couldn't have been that boring. There's got to be some question.
It's just that I did such a good job interviewing you.
I've got a question here. Let me see. I think I do. Give me a sec.
I can't wait till I get up there, Jeff, and jump into a cruise. I downloaded the app. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep. Well, you're welcome inside any cruise. We don't have any sort of, dishwasher competency test to qualify as a cruise rider.
Well, I've just seen recently, and I know that this is a thing, but they've got the automated like housekeeping and room service robots in hotels.
Oh yeah.
And so if I want to ask you something just going forward, and I know you can't divulge anything, but just, get in their ear about automatic dishwasher robots.
Oh yeah.
If this thing with the cars takes off, we've really got to think to the future.
Yeah.
Let's just get the dishwashing thing off the table. No pun intended.
Well, what I've, on sort of a serious note, one of the things that I find really exciting about the AV industry is that the tools that we're creating in order to make these vehicles drive safely are tools that will create a lot of other things. We don't even know what they are, but like when you think about the moonshot program and going, that produced all sorts of other things, because in order to solve the problem of getting a person safely to the moon and back, you had to figure out things that created everything from cellular phones to Gore-Tex to water filtration. I mean, a whole series of things that we've created over the last 50 years came from that Moon program. So I'm excited to see what we can do with dishwasher technology based upon all the sophisticated AI tools we're building at Cruise.
It makes my heart swell to hear you say that, Jeff.
And we're your focus group. We're
here
focus
for
group,
it.
Jeff.
There you go.
Great to see you. It's been way too long. Next time I'm up there or you're down here, we ought to get together. Really, really great to see you, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, no, I would love to see you, and thanks so much for having me on.
Be well.
Bye, Jeff.
Okay, be well, Steve.
Take care, buddy.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. It was really interesting listening to Jeff, because I've got to say, it's not like Jeff and I have had lengthy conversations about what's going on at the court. And yet we see it in extraordinarily similar ways,
Yeah, it was like listening to you talk.
It was like listening to myself talk. And in a way, it was also sort of a sanity check for me, because sometimes I do feel like this theory of constitutional interpretation is being taken so seriously, and it really makes almost no sense. I really don't think that's a partisan statement. Obviously I have a particular political orientation. I have a particular way I feel about the various decisions in terms of the results. But I really do feel that as a method of constitutional interpretation, it just makes virtually no sense. No, in fact, it makes no sense to do this thing that the court has been doing and this majority will now continue to do.
Well,
but
I said it to you the other day, and I'm going to repeat myself now. I think that it goes without saying that there are a few people on the Supreme Court who are definitely people that would put Tupperware on the bottom rack of the dishwasher.
And I guess this is a little cross promotion, Chris, because this, of course, is Dishwasher Diaries. And I do a separate podcast called Supreme Court Confidential, where we talk about Supreme Court cases. But, given that Jeff was our guest today, we did a little cross-pollination there. Who else is on stage with us? Before we wrap up today, I do want to talk about loading your dishwasher a little, because, that's what we do. Who's here today? We have old friends. We've talked to Felicity. We've talked to Judy Ann. Who else?
Got some new folks too.
New folks too. Before we go to new folks, though, Kiwi, can you talk to us for a minute? Because we haven't had a conversation yet, as far as I know, with one of our dishwasher refuseniks. Are you available to chat with us for a minute?
I asked her to come up. Oh, look who it is. It's Kiwi. Hello.
Kiwi, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! First time in the speaker's chair on Fireside.
Don't be afraid.
That's cool.
So Kiwi, we first met, I guess, a year ago, because you wandered into Dishwasher Diaries when we were on Clubhouse, and I think you were our first. You were certainly our most memorable dishwasher refusenik. So you live in the Netherlands and you don't have a dishwasher.
Yes, that is true. I still do not have a dishwasher.
But tell us the story. It's not like you just moved into a home and it didn't have a dishwasher. Tell us the story.
There was
your dishwasher.
I think pretty fancy dishwasher. I think it was Mila. And I came in.
Pronunciation there, by the way, Mila. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I walked in and I looked around, tiny kitchen, because everything is tiny. In the Netherlands, we don't have much floor space. It's always built upwards. So, the space is tiny. And I thought, I will never be able to fit my bowl collection in this kitchen with this dishwasher. I've never used one, never had one. Why should I start now? So I pulled it out and put it out on the street for someone else to grab it and take it. So
Now,
it was
now
my
in
gift to
LA
the neighborhood.
Oh, sorry. Say that again, Kivi.
It was my gift to the neighborhood.
So, like in LA, you will see like an old couch or something, laying on the curb, and somebody will come and just grab it with a truck. So, I'm curious if you know, like, how long did it take for the dishwasher to disappear? Like,
I think it was very fast, like within the hour. Someone pulled up because people put out stuff on certain days. And
okay, so this is not
then like the from the city, they will come and clear it out at some point.
I see.
But in Amsterdam, people also randomly put it out on other days. But this was one of those days where you're supposed to put stuff out onto the street. So it was gone very quickly because then there are scavenger hunters. They just drive around and. Yeah, it was gone pretty fast.
So I want to demonstrate by talking to you a little longer that we don't just ask people about how they load their dishwasher. If they are a refusenik or just a hand washer, we are also curious about their hand washing techniques. So first things first, this is some of the lyrics of our Dishwasher Diaries theme. Do you soak your dishes? So dirty dishes, a meal is over. Do you immediately wash them? Do you soak them in the sink? What's the first thing that happens after a meal is over?
Yeah, so everyone brings their dishes, their own stuff, or we clear the table together, and then it piles up. And sometimes I wait a little bit if there's anything else fun to do, but otherwise I'll just do the dishes. And I create I have this special, a smaller plastic container kind of thing where I foam the dishwasher liquid. I make it a little bit more easy to use. So I don't have to refill constantly my sponge. So, yeah. And now I got these fancy, instead of a sponge that I used to use, you can get a loofah type, these natural fiber coconut ones, and also a loofah type ones. They're also natural fiber. They're a little bit expensive, but they go a long way. Now I have those, and they work. They work even better than the fluffy stuff I had previously, like these, because they, deteriorate quite fast. And these are really, really good. And they're a little bit more, they scrape better. So, yeah. So
I got it. And it sounds like when you wash, right, you use a little pan that you fill with water. So you're probably not using a lot of water. You're conscious of that. What about when you rinse? Do you rinse with running water, or do you also have a little thing of clean water that you sort of run them through? What's going on?
I do it with running water.
Okay, but
it's bad.
Okay,
but I like the sound of water, and it's quite meditative for me. It's like a moment for myself. I soap the dishes and pile them up, and then it feels like a waterfall or something. Maybe it's because I live in the Netherlands. It's so flat. Water. We don't have rivers or anything like that. There are just canals with still water.
A lot of water, it's just sitting there. It's not.
So I miss that sound, kind of. So I keep it running, and I'm really fast though. Just because then everything is already, ready to be rinsed, and then it goes through there pretty fast.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
Drying. Are you a towel dryer, or are you a rack dryer?
Rack dryer. Absolutely. I don't use towels at all on my dishes. I don't like that. It feels like you're cleaning off the bacteria and you might put on some new bacteria. No. Yeah. And I must say, I got something new recently for this process. I got little tiny, now my English is not this is not my first language, so I don't know what to call it, but it's tiny little balls, or maybe marbles. It looks like tiny marbles.
Okay.
And it's called bottle cleaner.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this is tiny container with tiny little marbles in it,
Yeah.
like metal marbles. Yeah. So, and it's great. You put them into like glass bottles and things like that. And then they swirl around and they clean the bottles. It's super cool.
And they're made out of, did you say metal?
Yes, I can you hear this? Yeah.
So now it would strike me that at least in more fragile glassware, there would be a risk that they would break things, but no, apparently, obviously.
No, they're pretty small.
Okay, they're like little beads, maybe we might.
Yeah, and you decide, how harsh you will shake the bottle. So yeah, you can adjust it.
Okay, I get the idea, but I don't know that I've ever seen these. So little metal beads that enable you to clean something that you can't get a brush or a sponge or your loofah thing into.
Yeah, remember I told you back in the days that when in Kurdistan, sometimes in these villages, people do their dishes with sand, and they will wash them with sand because they don't have dishwasher liquid and all that kind of stuff, and then they rinse them in the river with mountain water. So it's kind of similar to that technique. And I saw them and I thought, hey, this is just like how people wash their stuff in Kurdistan. So circle is round. Now I have these little marbles to wash my stuff
I'm looking
with.
at this.
Back to your Kurdish roots.
I'd not seen this before, Kiwi. I'm looking at it online as we speak. They're almost like ball bearings.
Yeah,
They're smaller than marbles. Yeah. Crazy.
And are they as big as ball like are they like BB sized or are they smaller?
The ones I'm looking at seem like they're about BB sized. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
Mine are maybe like 2 millimeters.
Yeah,
we're American, Kiwi. We have no idea what that means.
Yeah, that means
like
we're savages, Kiwi. We don't know what that means.
2 millimeters, is that
It's like little earrings, or something, like little.
Yeah, they're like about the size
round.
of BB, Steve. And you put it in. It looks like you put it in with a little bit of water, and then you swirl it around. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's also very sustainable, and you don't. They take care of most stuff.
I'm watching
they're
some
really
guy
good.
clean out the inside of a decanter.
Yes, exactly. Those difficult things where now you can get into all the corners and stuff.
Well, in the spirit of our Dishwasher Diaries community, does anyone have a dishwashing question for Kiwi? Does anyone want to ask Kiwi anything about the way she does the dishes? We can't ask you dishwasher questions, but we can ask you dishwashing questions because you hate dishwashers. And that's okay. It's a safe space. That's okay.
My thing.
I have one question about it. I know you said that you use a rack to dry. Do you have is it a rack that's in part of the sink, or is it a mat that you have on the counter?
It's on the counter. And
do you have a mat under it?
No, it's a double decker. So it's like...
so it has a tray.
Yes, it's metal. And it's like it has 2 floors, let's say.
Everything gets built up in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or in the Netherlands.
So it doesn't take up too much counter space.
Right. Nothing builds out, it builds up.
Yeah, but it's very sturdy and it can take a lot because of the 2 spaces. So most of the time, all the glass and bowls and everything go underneath. And then on top of it, it has these little things where you put the plates in between and pots and pans. So then you have the whole thing in one place. It's perfect. Yeah.
Kiwi, my last question for you. Yeah. Can you envision any circumstances, maybe a new life partner or moving to a different part of the world? I don't know. Are there any circumstances under which you could see yourself becoming a dishwasher user and abandoning your hand wash ritual, including the beautiful sound of the running water? Maybe if you move right next to a river where you're constantly hearing running water. Can you envision, is this even possible, or are you a hand washer for life?
I'm a hand washer for life, I think. I also find them aesthetically ugly, so no. It's not going to happen. And I enjoy washing the dishes. So I'm quite domestic when it comes to these things, and I like to work with my hands. So, and I don't want to get lazy, because I think it's a part of being human to kind of use your body and your soul with every little detail. So, and we have enough machines around us. I don't know. I want to move towards more simplicity, if possible, with age, than vice versa. So that's my goal. Yeah.
Now, I know you work in the electric car industry, so I'm guessing the autonomous car conversation for you was probably an interesting one.
It is very interesting. Also, the AI part of everything. You know, I definitely work now with, we have these advanced bots and things and AI stuff coming in. And it's a lot of AI taking over a lot of things that we thought were boring to work with ourselves. So I think it's a nice balance to have. So when I get home, I can do my dishes by hand and enjoy that, because a big part of my life is also all done by systems and other things. Yeah.
I love it. Just as we're finishing our conversation, Kiwi, and we're about to wrap up, but I'm smiling because just as we're wrapping up talking to one of our dishwasher refusenicks, I noticed that Cindy joined us, and she has 3 dishwashers. So between the two of you, you still have 1.5 dishwashers per household, which is more than the average, which has to be below 1. So I love that Cindy joined us just as we're finishing up talking with you.
I honestly, Steve, I did the math in my head really quick, and I was like, no, it's only an average of 1. And then I remembered that our dear friend Cindy, the dishwasher diva, has 3 dishwashers.
3.
I like to help the averages.
Same here. I balance things out. So it's
you two are an excellent compliment to each other. Chris, I think we did it. I think all that's left is the theme song. But before I play the second greatest song ever, any final thoughts from you or anyone on stage? Then I will give a few thank yous. We will play the second greatest song ever, and we're in the books.
I honestly since I asked the question off the top of my head, I've been thinking about and Googling dishwashing robots. And I don't know that they've got the design down yet, because I'm seeing like these mechanical arms on the countertop that actually wash them by hand. So like it wouldn't be taking our place, it'd be taking Kiwi's place. And it's just weird. It's weird. They really need to streamline it. But I look forward to our dishwasher overlords.
When you say that, it's to, I think, what they have on cruise ships and stuff with these bartenders robots.
Yes, it's like that.
Who shake the perfect cocktails, every single time. So.
Oh yeah, I'll send you the link. It's crazy. It's just like it's one of those arms like you see in a factory, except it makes drinks instead of putting together products on an assembly line.
I love it. And does it have like some conduit where it can take whatever liquid it needs? And
all the liquor bottles are in the ceiling, hanging down. And
so it actually grabs them individually.
No, it puts how they've more or less, like it pushes up against them, and then the liquid comes out when it pushes something to dispense.
Okay, so they're wired into a central thing. It doesn't actually grab the bottle and like pour.
No, but it grabs the glass and shakes it up. It does the whole shaker thing. Yeah.
And by the way, when you were talking about robot room service, when I was shooting a film in Buffalo like 4 years ago, I checked into the hotel there and I realized I didn't have a toothbrush. So I called down and I said, is there any chance you guys have a toothbrush? They said, yeah, we'll send one right up. A few minutes later, the door, actually my phone rang in my room. I thought, that's weird. Pick up the phone. Your item is now ready at the door. I thought, why are they calling me? Why isn't someone just knocking on the door? I opened the door and there's a freaking robot there. And a little tray opens, it like pops out, toothbrush and toothpaste, and then it turns around and whizzes away. I managed to get a video of the last part of that because I didn't know a robot was going to be at the door. But as soon as I saw the robot, I ran and grabbed my phone and got a video of it sort of spinning around and going back to the elevator. Really cool. I love that.
I've heard that's how they're delivering food because of COVID, and you go to Hong Kong, for example, you're in a hotel room for weeks and they deliver things via robot.
I love it. I think it's really cool. I think that's it, folks. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank my trusty producer, Chris Seacott. I want to thank our special guest, Jeff Bleich. And I want to thank Brother Sam Lange for writing for us the second greatest song ever, which I will play for you now. Catch you soon. Thanks for joining us on Dishwasher Diaries. Feel free to sing along if you're on stage.
Do you wash by hand or by machine? Do you rinse your dish or do you leave it in the sink soaking? Dishwasher queries from people all over the world. Bring your questions then. Come and meet my friends. Dishwasher Diaries. Have you, ever cleaned out your food trap? Have you ever researched all the brands of the product you're using? We will investigate the best way to dry your plates. Bring your questions then. Come and meet my friends. Dishwasher Diaries.
The Big Finish.
Dishwasher Diaries.
Take care.
Dishwasher Diaries was recorded before a live studio audience.
Take care, everyone.
Created live on Fireside.